Okay, that was Attack on Titan, Season 4, Episode 9. We got a lot of information that episode. I think that one of the biggest pieces of information was probably my fault for not understanding it in the first place, because a lot more things make sense now. It has to be a Titan with royal blood for Eren to use the Founding Titan's power.
Oh, so they would have had to turn Historia into a Titan.
Which makes a lot more sense why Eren was scared for her.
Yeah. It couldn't have just been him holding Historia's hand or her riding on his shoulder. Okay.
It makes, and they didn't have anybody else to be eaten at that time, so Historia could, like, remain a human, you know?
They didn't have any of the serum.
But that makes a lot more sense. It's interesting, though, because that kind of means that Zeke was, without a doubt, the best option since it was there for Eren.
And now that I'm thinking about it, after we've finished the episode, as soon as all of the kind of Marleyans that are, I guess, friendly with Paradis now are at gunpoint, they're giving over the serum. I was like, wow, they brought all that serum originally? And then I was like, oh, that's so dumb. No. Like, Zeke and Yelena obviously brought this now.
Yeah. How do you feel about Yelena?
I love Yelena.
Yeah.
I am like, I want this character better not freaking die anytime soon, because I love her being there. I like how she talks. I like how she shows her emotion.
Yeah. Part of me is very worried about her and her motives and intentions, because I think there's a possibility that she and Zeke are playing this game for an ulterior motive that Eren will probably agree with, and the rest of Paradis might not be all for.
Well, their final goal, I feel like the issue that we see often with this show is that you might want to work together with someone because initially you want the same thing, but that doesn't mean that after that's obtained, you're going to want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that kind of scene with all of the military leaders and leaders of Paradis debating on something. And I think that's just like an example of not everyone is going to agree on how to go about something.
Yeah.
And Yelena's a character who is undoubtedly going to do whatever Zeke and Zeke's plan is. And if someone gets in the way of that, you know, and it's similar, like if I think of Mikasa, if someone got in the way of what Eren wanted and what Eren was trying to do, Mikasa would step in. I feel like Yelena's that same thing, but for Zeke. That they might agree with you and be buddy-buddy as long as Zeke and Eren's wants and needs are met and you can work together.
Yeah.
But after, then you would have to separate, and maybe violence would be the answer.
I'm really enjoying her time on screen. I think the thing that I'm most interested in right now, like with her, is that relationship with Zeke. Is it a respect, curiosity, and infatuation, and I'll do anything for this god, and like it's put me in my place and I'm a devout follower? Or is it like I'm trying to fuck that orangutan?
She might not think she's worthy.
No, I know. I think that the word god was a giveaway for Yelena.
I think both Eunyoung Kampon and Yelena feel like this is their savior, and this is the person they're going to follow, and that has saved them. And honestly, I think it's summed up perfectly in the fact that some people, we were thinking that everyone, all nations, thought that this power came from the devil of all earth. But some people believe it came from God.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, of course you're going to assume that it came from devil of all earth if you are on the side that is actively trying to fight against Titans and Eldians.
Right.
Like,
I mean, one person's trash is another person's treasure. I don't know.
I think this episode might have solidified one of my top 5 favorite characters in the series being Hanji for me.
Her acting, and like you could tell that she was so nervous and putting on such a show at the beginning there.
And don't get me wrong, I loved that. But I think that if there was one character that I would have wanted to survive this whole time, sidebar Erwin, because I want to talk about that later, Hanji's excitement of learning new information has got to be one of the most like pure, innocent, happiest moments of watching this entire series, because we've obviously known how interested in Titans at all. She was from the very start of when we met her. But to see like this uncomfortability between these two sets of people, and Anyan Capone is like, you know, telling them how it is, and all that he gets back is like, but your skin is darker than mine. Can you explain that for me? And it's like, oh, whoa, really? It works like this? It's like genuine, pure, just enthusiasm and wanting to learn. And that is so cool to see in a character.
And that's
like,
what motivates Hanji.
Yeah.
Like, I think we've said before that Hanji and Sasha are somewhat similar. And I think if we're trying to articulate how they're similar, it's that they have this excitement and this childlike, just like purity that goes along with something that isn't a motivator for everyone else. With Hanji, this motivator for her is getting to the secrets of the world that no one else cares about.
Yeah.
Like, she wanted to know and research Titans when everyone else was like, no, we should just kill them. Why are you trying to research them? And I feel like Sasha was just super motivated by food, which is maybe simpler, but it wasn't the things that were motivating and driving everyone else around them.
Yeah.
And they both had a purity to the things that they were interested in, like a curiosity. Like, Sasha was so curious to try new foods. And that's the same way that Hanji's so curious to learn new things about other people and Titans.
Well, and then we get the reiteration of, like, there are mixed beliefs and mixed feelings within the world. There's a lot of different people and a lot of different people. Hell, Marley's in a fight with several different countries, but like
that joined together, that allied because of the fact
that they
lost the warrior unit,
which I think is freaking sick, honestly, like just like in a storytelling, like writing sense, but like the acknowledgement that there are other countries and each country probably feels slightly different and has slightly different ideas of what they should do, because that's kind of the whole point of the show, like a big portion of the show, right? The juggling of if one person's idea of right necessarily has to be imposed on the entire world for the world to be just.
Right.
And yeah, that's kind of the seemingly. I would love to get into what you think Eren is thinking in the flashback.
Eren's thinking in the flashback from 3 years ago?
Yeah, like when we're seeing him talk to Mikasa and Armin, because like it seemed like there might have been slight acknowledgement that there could be another way, but the feeling that I got was like Zeke only has 3 years left and we don't know how everything else is going to operate. This is the route that we need to go down.
I think Eren kind of said it. Obviously it was cynical, and in comparison Armin is much more optimistic that kindness and words can reach anyone despite where they come from. And obviously Armin feels like he now has evidence of that because he's now met and befriended people from a warring enemy nation. But when Armin was like, they'll realize that we're nothing to fear, and when Eren was like, we can turn into Titans. Yeah. Like, that fact isn't gonna go away once we befriend these people. They're still going to be wary that eventually, what if a new leader takes over of the Eldians? What if a new king or queen takes over the Eldians and decides to go back on any treaties that were made? They still have the power to turn into Titans, which is a giant weapon of warfare and horrifying. Yep. And so, like, and they're not wrong. And when Eren was like, Eren's awareness of the situation, while pessimistic and cynical, was, there's a lot
of realism there.
Right. I always say when someone tells me I'm being pessimistic, I would say half of the time I might be a little bit overly pessimistic, but some of the time I reply being like, I'm being realistic. Yeah. My expectations are real to the situation that is at hand.
I think being optimistic is when you take positive and negatives both into account and try to look at every way the situation could go, bad or good, and then being good, like optimistic about it and having a good mentality towards it.
I think a balanced person, a very aware person, can be all three of those things depending on the situation. Yeah. I think a balanced person can be pessimistic, realistic and optimistic depending on the evidence that they're given. Yeah. But I feel like while Armin has such a grand, amazing goal and wish that they could all just talk it out and we're not evil, that is not possible in my opinion.
I
They'd
think
still be like, they'd still have to protect themselves majorly.
There isn't a better plan that's been laid out that has a better route.
Right.
I think that me included, me and Armin are like trying to think of like any other way that we could like work things out without the rumbling, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm sitting here trying to figure it out in my head because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, you like get everybody on the same page and then you get all the Titan powers, then you lock them away so you're on equal footing. But then I'm like, oh, but the intricacies of how Titan's power works, the intricacies of how Titan power works, you can't just lock it away. It goes to another person. If you're enslaving a person, then obviously you've already gone down a wrong path.
Even if that person dies, it's born into a new baby.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of nuclear power. There are so many like countries on our world that have nuclear power, and we just have to know that. We know that they could do horrifying things with this power if the wrong person comes into power in that country, or if we do the wrong thing and we piss them off, you know, like that's what this reminds me of, this rumbling. Like no matter what no matter what good relations you have with this country, it's still gonna be, you're going to be walking on eggshells because who's going to come into power? You might try to get in the way of if they do elections or if they put a new king or queen into power, there might be assassination plots to make sure that the candidate you want, that you think will keep everyone safe, gets into power.
There's like, I'm just trying to, you know, brainstorm, and even if you compare it to nuclear weapons, you can say that, okay, split up the Titan powers into 7 nations that are equally filled with different, like all different types of races and people. And then each, you know, civilization has their own, like, you know, way of how they want to live. And each of them has equal Titan power if you compare it to nuclear weapons. But you can't, because each Titan power isn't equal. Each have their own pros and cons. One is literally a warhead, when another one is really good at climbing through trees and
imagine how upset
shells.
The nation that has the Cart Titan would be compared to the nation that has the Colossal Titan. It would kind of be like you drew, like, the Cart Titan is good for what the Cart Titan is good for, but it doesn't like beat brute strength.
In any of these situations, though, there's or possibilities, there are possible solutions. There are mountains of uncertainties, you know?
The unknown, which is the theme in this episode.
Yeah.
Is the unknown.
And it seems like at the moment in this story, even 3 years later, nobody has been able to think of a realistic, better option to save their lives other than that.
I have a question for you. Why do you think Eren is so ready and willing almost to cast off any hatred he has toward the Beast Titan, to agree with so heavily this plan of Zeke, and almost seems to be such a supporter of, this is both of our goals, and we don't feel any hatred exude toward him? Like that whole scene on the airship last episode, Eren didn't ever seem to have any like aura of hatred like spreading to Zeke, who is sitting beside him. And I feel like part of me was a little surprised by that. He now has his father's memories. He knows that Zeke is the one that turned his father and Zeke's mother in. And he killed a bunch of people. Like, obviously, Levi and Flock and everyone else has a hatred toward the Beast Titan because of the people the Beast Titan killed.
Yeah, but think about how Eren handled Reiner. Like we're the same kind of thing. I think that there at least has to be a little bit of thinking of, oh, well, not only I went to the basement and compared myself to Reiner, this is literally my half-brother, and he was also told all of this heavily influenced information by both of our shared father. And
But he was also told the heavily influenced information that the father was originally told as a child. So I just feel like that's growth for Eren's character, to not be like hop on the anger hatred train and like hold the grudge. In a way that slightly surprises me. Oh,
it's growth, but I think growth often has a positive connotation next to it, and I think it's
maybe a negative growth of disassociating for a goal. Like, it doesn't matter because
I don't know yet. It depends. Like part of me is like, oh, well, when it comes to Zeke and Eren, they're both meeting in the middle a bit, right? Because even though Eren is the one with the Founding Titan powers and he is necessary to Zeke's plan, I think Zeke knows what he's bringing to the table as well.
And isn't Zeke necessary to Eren, who doesn't want to hurt Historia?
I think Zeke knows that to some degree.
No wonder Eren jumped on this. He immediately stood up and told everyone. And I think he felt comfortable telling everyone in that moment because he heard that there was a possibility on the table of someone other than Historia. And he wanted to back it up.
Yeah.
Because he was like, this is an opportunity where he's been holding for a while this information that using Historia could be beneficial to them and their protection and the safety of the people. And he didn't do it. And I think that it might be one of those situations of like, I'm getting something out of this, like a symbiotic relationship in nature.
Yeah.
Where it's like two unlikely animals, but have like a predator with a prey, or like a shark and has like the little tiny fish, you know, on their body.
Like the nursing fish.
Eren's the little tiny, no, I'm kidding.
What were the Restorationists' goal?
To take down Marley, right? To free Eldia.
Yeah. Like to the same degree that not Erwin, oh my god, that was a different thought, but Zeke's plan.
You did say you wanted to talk about Erwin, so it's obviously in your head somewhere.
But for like, how different is what Zeke's trying to do than what was told for him to do by Grisha in the first place?
I feel like it has to be slightly different. It might be somewhat the same, but I also feel like it's slightly different. I don't know why I'm feeling that way, but I just couldn't see Zeke matching up so heavily with what Grisha had wanted. It would be, maybe that's weird to think that he would literally align himself perfectly with his father's ideal and almost become an embodiment of Grisha and Grisha's like feelings. I feel like he has to be somewhat separate.
Do we know why Historia was able to see the Ymir memories? Is it just because she's royal blood and just because of that? Is there any possibility, since Zeke is royal blood, he already has seen everything in regards to Eren, or maybe Grisha in hindsight after, you know?
That could be it, but when you started talking, I was like, does that mean that eventually Historia is gonna eat the Jaw Titan and that's why she was able to get the memories, because it's all like connected, yeah. But I mean, it could just be a royal blood
I think
thing,
that's a good question,
but now I think I have to be somewhat suspicious. If anyone knows anything randomly that they shouldn't know,
yeah,
I think I'll be a little suspicious. Interesting that Armin feels that nothing from Bertholdt's memories would help them. I don't necessarily believe that.
I wrote Armin keeping Bert's memories to himself. Do you think that they're like...
It almost seems like a respect of privacy or protection.
I don't know. Why would Eren ask?
Is it to protect Annie?
Well, why do you think Armin was sitting down there trying to talk to Annie? Of course you're like, there's something there.
I always thought that Armin possibly had a crush on Annie.
But no, the one Armin 8
when they were like
did.
Younger.
So the one Armin 8 had a crush on Annie. So of course he's trying to sit there and talk to her.
Yeah, but I thought that Armin had a crush on Annie before any of that happened.
Well, I'm wondering if Armin's sitting down there because he does remember Bert's memories, and the whole reason Eren was asking was for some nefarious reason. Mm-hmm. And like he knew that it or thought that something there would have influenced Armin.
But that's the thing, is Eren doesn't have current Marley memories or close to current Marley memories or warrior candidate Marley memories. Armin does. Especially if that was in the timeline of 3 years ago. Like, you know? So currently, who knows if Armin shared anything. But back then, I think we talked about it right when Armin got the Colossal. Mm-hmm. We were like, okay, so this is a different perspective of Marley that Armin will be receiving compared to what Eren received.
Yeah.
And there has to be things that Armin learned, especially about the military and the people who'd be coming to attack them, that maybe he was withholding or something.
What pushed Eren to leave Paradis, which I'm starting to think might be supposed to be called Paradis in French after hearing Zelena say Paradis earlier in the episode. I wonder what made Eren leave, right?
There are a lot of French names in the island, right?
Yeah, but
just call it the island so we don't get it wrong.
But we've been saying it so much, I don't even know. But obviously something must push Eren to leave in the flashback and go live in Marley and learn himself how the civilization works. That, like, obviously Zelena wasn't good enough for Eren, and it wasn't enough. Potentially Bertholt's memories through Armin. I know that he said he didn't remember it, but, like, was that why he didn't get any answers from Armin about what it was like over there, so he needed to go over and see how it was like? Like, there obviously had to be a moment where Eren decided to abandon these people, and like they said in the episode, Armin said Eren would have done it alone when he was speaking to Annie.
Does he realize that maybe that no one else has a sense of urgency with the fact of, like, Zeke's timeline? And maybe Eren is like, well, Zeke only has 3 years left, and maybe he secretly speaks to Yelena. Maybe he just decides to go because he gets to sit in on those meetings and hears the debate that people aren't on the same page of how to handle this.
I wonder how much Yelena and Eren were kept from each other before Eren left.
Well, like, is that why that Zeke and Eren are being so heavily kept from each other? Because maybe Eren met with Yelena, and there was couldn't you see Zeke having a secret message, only tell this to Eren?
Definitely. I 100% could see that. A couple things I wanted to touch on and then get into, but before that I wanted to bring up the Irwin's
just so you can get it out.
Yeah, get it out. I would be extremely surprised if there wasn't desire within the community and could also be made already. You know how Marvel had a What If series? Mm-hmm. Like, I would...
Attack on Titan, What If?
I would love to see what it would be like in the same... Everything plays out like the same basic story plot points, but I'd love to see how it changes if Erwin was alive instead of Armin. Like, I would love to see... Like, I wouldn't necessarily like it better or want it. I would just love to see how it would differ, you know? Mm-hmm. How it would change things, if anything.
What would it be like if Eren hadn't given Mikasa a scarf?
That's a good one.
It's not.
I think bringing Nicolo into the story as, like, the scared hostage, and then to show us this potential romance or just...
Well, I don't even think it's a potential romance. I think this was 3 years ago, the initial blushing at the food, and then they've spent basically 3 years since where he's been cooking for her. They were probably a thing, especially by how Connie talks to Nicolo. They were definitely a thing.
It was not fun.
No.
Because I love Sasha, and this made me even miss her more, and I was very terrified that her parents were going to be like, no, fuck you, you're not one of us, and I know that's not who Sasha's dad is, but I was so scared.
If that had happened in this discussion, we would have been like, that didn't feel like Sasha's father. Because we met Sasha's father, and he doesn't seem to be so caught up in petty things.
Yeah.
Like, I think he would have heard that and been like, wow, yeah, my daughter did like food. Okay, she liked your food? Thank you.
I have a question for you. If this world could have continued the way that it has been, and Reiner, Annie, and Bertholdt never came to the island, it was just, you know... The island of Paradis was left alone. Mm-hmm. Other countries did their thing. Is that a potential better solution than the rumbling?
So, unfortunately, Marley had a pretty sweet deal before they did what they did by the fact that the people in power didn't want to fight, and so they were keeping everything secret and had everyone's memories wiped. So Marley had a sweet deal, and so did the other nations. That all of this untapped danger was just gonna could forever sit on this island without causing any stir.
Yeah.
And they went, and they, you know, it reminds me of those movies where it's like there's all those signs, like, don't go in this building, there's a curse on it, like this cave or something. And, like, Marley knew that there was a curse on this cave, and then they went into it and unleashed the curse on the entire world. That's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah.
So, obviously, there would have been maybe... I mean, if we're going with that, then Eren still would have learned... No. Because if Marley never attacked, then Grisha would have just lived his days as a father to Eren. And, you know, nothing would have happened, right? If Marley had never attacked. The day the Fire Nation attacked.
I just want to make sure that we're getting our facts right. Did Grisha already went to steal the power before they attacked? No?
I think the timeline was around the same time.
Yeah, but like...
And we were speculating that maybe Grisha did it specifically then because he knew that it was about to happen.
Yeah. I wonder if there was any, like, Zeke plan there. Like...
But if Marley was never gonna attack, then... I mean, I guess Kruger still would have sent Grisha on a mission to basically free the Eldians. So...
No, but, like, to free the Eldians, obviously he knew he would need a member of the royal family, royal bloodline, and... He would have
he probably was, seeking the power before... Either or, you know, he already was.
I just keep trying to think, like, was there any message given to Zeke before, like, that made him decide to do things differently after Grisha left? You know?
Well, we speculated that maybe watching his grandfather go, like, basically, be unraveled.
Yeah.
And have to go live at a hospital because of not being able to deal with the guilt of what happened to his son. And, you know, that awareness that he then had after the trauma, I'm sure that didn't go unnoticed by Zeke. And Zeke also would have that and then would see how Eldians were treated in the military as basically just sacrificial pawns in order to get to, so that Marley soldiers could survive.
Yeah.
And do you know what else Zeke saw? Which is why he has sympathizers. He saw how Marley treated the rest of the nations.
Yeah,
we got a direct comparison to how Marley's treating other nations compared to the whole reason in the history books from Marley that Eldia was horrible and devils. They did the same exact stuff.
Yep.
Like, how hypocritical is that? That their history books and the reason they oppress and can continue to oppress the Eldians is look at this history book where we show how evil your people were, but we're gonna do the exact same thing you guys did to other nations and we're not evil.
You wonder if it's after seeing that, it's a realization of no matter how we go about things in subtle ways, it will always repeat itself. So let's say fuck it and try something drastic. Mm-hmm. That being the rumbling, which maybe
it could be like a start over. Let's start over. Let's start the whole world over because all of you suck.
That could be a potential worry with why Eren and Zeke haven't met. Because again, there had to be a reason, a deciding moment where Eren left and betrayed everybody's trust. And I think that with that knowledge, you know, in the bank is why they're being kept separate right now. Because they don't trust Eren.
Why would you let two people you don't trust hang out
with the biggest power and
with
most
the biggest
powerful,
both of them?
Yeah,
they're the powers that matter here.
Of them.
Yes,
not either of them individually, but both of them together.
And together, they're the powers that you need as an island for protection against Marley. So if you don't trust either of them, doesn't that kind of suck that your weapon, the only weapon you really have, is so untrustworthy now?
Yeah. I mean, like, granted, Levi and Mikasa are crazy strong. We have the Colossal Titan, but I don't know.
But we've seen from Bertholdt that the Colossal Titan is kind of just to get in the door.
Yeah.
And the steam, obviously, is really awesome, but it's more just an intimidation power, the Colossal Titan.
It's a nuke, too. It kills
Yes, okay, that's true.
Like, thousands of people.
When it unleashes, it's wild and crazy.
Just to go over a couple things I wrote down. Eren picked up a ship and, like, brought it aground, you know? He ran a ship aground himself. That was nuts. The reminder that Marley has 1 million soldiers, and that's not even talking about their fleet, which just obviously went into their planning for what they decided to do there and what Armin did there.
There's a little issue with how many soldiers they have. Like, yes, they have that many soldiers, but how many of those soldiers are Eldians, and how many of those soldiers are people, basically like people that were taken from other nations and forced into servitude in some form, which is like forced into the military.
Other nations attacking Marley at the knowledge of them losing Titans is so cool to me. I know we talked
From
about it
episode
already,
1,
but
I
it's so
thought
cool.
Marley had started it. I
Yeah.
thought they were the major instigators.
Of season 4, you mean?
Yeah. Like, I just was like, oh, Marley probably just wanted to expand more.
Yeah.
But I'm like, also, why would they get into a war that they would have needed to do another mission at the same time? The timing, you know? I was like, it doesn't seem like a smart military plan to have both of those things happening at the same time to kind of spread your warrior unit,
Yeah.
you know, and not have all of them on the front lines for this major war. Here's the debate that people aren't on the same page of how to handle this. Here's the debate that people aren't on the same page of how to handle this. That people aren't on the same page.
That people aren't on the same page.